We make a gaming table for playing all your favorite games. It has a modularity where it can grow with you and grow with your family. You know, you can start with a small one and you can upgrade to a larger one, and it's all gonna work together. Yeah, it has a very clean, straight line aesthetic, sort of built for mass production. But we're gonna do another version. Some people reached out looking for our table because they love the functionality of our table. The magnetic rail for the accessories, the game vault to store your things when you're not gaming, the topper set. The functionality of our table was excellent, but it wasn't exactly the aesthetic they were looking for. So we developed another version which added in some sort of mid-century modern elements to the design, and we loved how it looked. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a photo set of these tables, where I think we're gonna build 4 tables in different materials, and I'm gonna walk you through what we're changing to turn it into this other aesthetic. I'm gonna walk you through it basically step by step. We're gonna be offering this in a few different materials. I believe we're gonna be offering this in cherry and walnut and rosewood and teak. Cherry and walnut, we work with all the time. That's very similar to how we do everything else. Rosewood, we also work with all the time, but we're gonna use some different construction methodologies. Instead of everything being solid wood, we're gonna do a veneered topper instead of a solid wood topper. And then I'm actually gonna also veneer the outsides of the rails themselves. I have a bunch of pieces of multi-ply hardwood plywood. We have many layers of hardwood, and then on the outside of that, there's an 1/8 inch layer of MDF. All these layers of hardwood on the inside give it high stability, and then the MDF on each side makes it a perfectly consistent ground for veneering. So we're going to take these panels, we are going to put solid rosewood edges on them. And that starts at the glue line shaper. Wanna walk over here? I got a thing to look at. You can see that shape there, which is reversible. We're gonna run the same profile through the shaper, and then if you turn it over, it nests into itself and gives you a perfectly flush surface there. When you run some geometry like this along the edge of the strips you're making, and then also the core you're gonna adhere them to, it just lines everything up and makes it nice and easy. So I'm gonna grab a whole cart full of sticks and a cart full of panels, run them all through this machine. All right, there we go. All our strips now have the glue line shaped on them. Our panels have the glue line shaped on them. So now we're going to go glue these together. We're gonna go use the clamp rack down there. These are the pieces that we glued up yesterday. So now I'm cross-cutting them a little bit shorter. We got nice, clean, smooth edges. Then we're gonna go back to that shaper and we're gonna put that same glue line profile along this edge. And then we're gonna glue another hardwood piece onto this edge, a little bit wider. This is the edge of the topper that has the bevel on it. We're getting towards the veneer stage. We have our topper frame, so we're gonna take those out of the clamp rack right now, prep those to send over to Jeremy. He's already stitched up the leaves of veneer for each individual leaf. He's gonna take it, he's gonna glue on a cross grain sublayer, and then he's gonna glue the matched face grain leaves of veneer on top. So we got them back just yesterday from Jeremy. And here's the rosewood one. The teak just came in yesterday, and I handed this over to Jeremy, and he got this turned around in like an afternoon. So yeah, this looks really good. The straight grain here, you can see it's a little bit of curl to it, a little wavy, a little shimmer. That's gonna look real nice. My original plan was to send these over to CNC because they're the same geometry as the normal MGT toppers, except for the ends. Turns out, the way the program runs, it's not gonna work. So we're gonna just do this all by hand. Right now, all our toppers are just rectangles. So step one is gonna be, we're gonna write the spline on all of them. I set it all up with the router bit here, which will put the 1/4" spline that we use. A little too deep the first time. That's why we do testers. All right, so here's where we are. We have the spline on all of them now. Before we can put a groove on the other side, we need to make sure they're the right width. We're gonna rip this to the final width. We're gonna cross cut it to the final length, and we're gonna put the bevel on it. So we're gonna set the angle of this blade to the angle of the bevel, and we're gonna take the panel, and we're gonna run it over the table saw this way. Looks kind of sketchy, doesn't it? Yeah. So what we're gonna use is a jig to support it while we run it across. So what this is just a box. It fits tight over the table saw fence. So now this is very, very, very solid. And then here is my 90 degrees to the table. So we take our panel, load it up against that fence, and then clamp it in place. So now it's perfectly secure, and you can run it back and forth over the table saw without losing control of it because it's clamped to the very solid fence. So now the toppers are the right width, the right length. They have a spline on them. Now they need a groove in them to accept the spline on the other side. We're gonna go do that. All right, we're gonna change this cutter over. So this is the one that we used to make the spline. Now we need to make a slot in the opposing edge of the other topper to accept that spline. So we're gonna use this guy for that, this little wing cutter. Careful, Matt, you're gonna get all dusty.
It's just a little bit.
I was worried about the camera, Okay, so we've got the splines, the grooves, they fit together. The bevel is on the edges. The last detail for this particular topper is the ends are shaped. Shaped kind of like this, it's curved. So we're gonna lay out the shape, cut the curve, and then we're gonna realize where we've cut the curve, there is no bevel. So then we're gonna have to put the bevel on it following the curve. It's the bandsaw. See, the teeth point down and it cuts this way. So whatever's on the bottom is where, if there's any chip out, that's where it's gonna be. The bottom of this panel is basically the final outline with veneer all the way to the edge. I don't want that to chip. So these are opposite ends of the table. I sawed out the curves by hand, and now I'm putting them back to back, and I'm gonna shape them together just to get these curves to match. Now we got the bevel laid out. So this bevel is what we did in the table saw. This bevel here is based off the curve. I'm gonna have to chisel a little bit around the corners and we'll smooth it all out with a block plane. go. Now you got a bevel that matches along the edge, around the corner, and down the front. So Kudo's doing the setup right now for the MGT leg. We start with our standard leg. So he's gonna run these with our standard modular game table profile. So if you see this shape with the hash marks here, that's the actual piece of wood that's going through this. We put it in as a rectangle, and then it comes out as this shape. And these different little blue hash mark pieces here, those are different cutters. Basically, we just have to get all of these different shaper profile cutters tuned in the right amount so that when it comes out, it's the right shape. This is what we came up with. This is the leg from the mid-century modern table. Started looking like this, ends up looking like this. Due to the size and the geometry of the leg, it has this big groove running down the inside on the modular game table. Most of that came out in the taper, but not the very tippy top. That's a piece of wood that I glued in to take that space up so that it's all smooth everywhere. The outside of the leg remains vertical. All of the taper is on the inside. It's an offset turning. So that means on one end, we're gonna chuck it right in the center, and on the other end, we're actually gonna chuck it way on the outside of the blank. We're gonna cut all this stuff off of here and just leave that little circle in the middle. All right, so now I got off a lot of the mask. At a certain distance down from the top is where I want my maximum diameter to be. So what you do is you just keep cutting in until you have a full circle. I'm very, very, very close to the maximum diameter that you can get out of this piece of wood right here. Now mostly have a tapered cylinder. I pretty much know my diameter here, then down on the other end, I sort of established the other diameter that I care about, which is the upper diameter of this ferrule. So I know I don't want to go thinner than that because then this thing won't fit. Cylinder's turned, foot is turned, but the top of the leg is still the way it was before. You've got the big facets, square and facets. We're gonna knock off these two front facets here, these two corners, and we're gonna round this front face to match the round of the leg in the front. That quickly, we've refined the shape that we want. You can, with a file, refine it a little bit more. Just blend it all together with this. And then after that, just a little bit of sanding. The last element to shaping this is the transition of this cove right here. We want to shape this a little bit more give it kind of this sort of feel here, and then blend that around the back of the leg and clean it up. And if I use this for all the legs, we'll just make sure that curves the same as we go across all the legs. And I'm just working my way up until I get to this line and sort of blending it to the back. And there we go. So this is pretty much all the rough shaping that this leg needs. Everything from this point out is basically finish sanding. But that is all the shaping that goes into modifying the MGT leg into the tapered leg. This is the normal rail blank for a regular MGT that goes into the molder. You can see it's 3 pieces of solid wood laminated together, and this gets the rail shape geometry cut out of it. When you try to do this with rosewood, teak, ebony, things like that, very expensive. Some of them are getting rare and hard to come by. So we want to get the most mileage out of it that we can. You want to make it last. So by resawing the rosewood itself thinner and applying it only to the areas you're going to actually see, when this is done and the table's assembled, it's going to appear as if it's all rosewood. You won't see any secondary woods. Perfect, looks great. So these are the armrests. We started out with a wider blank so we can cut the curve out of it. So I'm going to trace my pattern on all these blanks, bandsaw, table saw, a little bit of sanding, a little bit of shaping at the bench. Be good? We're in Pennsylvania.
Why?
Because that's where we finish all our furniture. Parts get produced in Massachusetts. We send them down to Pennsylvania for final sanding, assembly, and finishing. All the parts came down here this morning, and they're at various places in the shop getting worked on and moving down to the finish room. The only thing that I didn't finish was the curved shield rails, because Massachusetts had an equipment problem. Yeah, I'm gonna hand these off to Ed because they have a functional bandsaw. He's gonna take the blanks that we already made, trace the curve, bandsaw that shape out, and then smooth it, true it up on the edge sander. And then we're gonna figure out if we can brand these or not, which we'd like to.
So we're gonna see if we can put the Shield brand on the curved rail. I say we just try it. It can be sanded off. Most of it's all right, just there and there. If we still put this radius on it, and then like at the very end, just touch this against the sander just to make a flat spot right there. Hopefully that'll be enough. All right, cross your fingers. Hey, I call that a win.
We have one detail left we've yet to consider. This is a piece of metal. This is what goes into our rails like this that our magnetic accessories interact with. Now, when we introduced a curve onto this rail, we increased the distance from the metal to the outside edge, which means any of the accessories we have are going to sit farther in relationship to the armrest and the rail. In order to just make it the same, so all the accessories work the same all the way around, we're going to move it out here so it'll be a curved slot to match the curve of the rail. When we actually go into production of these parts, we'll just fabricate the part that way originally. But since I'm modifying existing parts, I'm just gonna chuck up a little bit in a laminate trimmer and just do a couple passes to run a slot further out. There we go. Now, the metal strip is all the way along the curve, equidistant to the outside face. are. This is actually the first time I've seen them complete and assembled. We have teak over here and Bolivian rosewood over here.
You satisfied with how they came out?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, they feel great. The finish is really good. The overall shape is very nice. It's very satisfying. I'm very happy with how the overall look came out. Mm-hmm. A lot of the mid-century aesthetic was largely designed for manufacture. That was sort of the period in history where crafting started to die and manufacturing started to grow. A lot of mid-century furniture you'll see, it's a straight taper the entire way up. And they avoid any handwork. You know, they avoid these transition moments because it's picky. You can't just straight produce it like off a machine.
Right.
You know? So I actually think the reason I like this so much is because we kept in those elements, you know? So this was like the transition point when that happened. And it's like the keeping in the craft elements that to me kind of differentiate it a little bit and just make it a little more special than your just mass-produced, you know, modern aesthetic. So yeah, and the other fun thing about this project, it started out as sort of a customer special request. You know, there was a customer who loved our table, loved the functionality that it had, but it wasn't exactly the aesthetic that they wanted. And it kind of gave us the freedom to play with that and come up with what we thought looked really good. And so that's the whole point of the custom shop. You know, we can take all these requests in and not only get people exactly what they want, but also try out all kinds of new great ideas for ourselves. So yeah, I know, I'm sure we have like a link somewhere. Reach out to the custom shop, you know, tell us what we want, and I think we can come up with a great solution.
And maybe hit them with a subscribe.
And also, you should subscribe. It's written right here under the table.
Oh, is it really? Yeah.
No, it's not, but it should have been.
We'll
Maybe we can Photoshop that on.
Yeah, we'll just.